Welcome to the Viewing Results Tables and Graphs tutorial for PavementLCA.com. Tab of the results come in three forms: bill of materials, summary measures, and absolute values. Bill of materials is just a listing of all the materials that contribute to our model, and it is the basis for the calculation of the summary measures and absolute values of the project. Summary measures are the life cycle impact assessment results of our project. Our summary measures are based on the US EPA's Tracy Impact Assessment Method. Absolute values are life cycle inventory or LCI flows associated with the project. Starting here, we're in my projects again. Here are the tutorial files that we've been working with so far. I'm going to show you a little trick that I find very useful when producing reports. To produce a report, you click down on reports here and you hit project reports, and another page comes up and you get to choose the projects. But if you have to go back to the project and change something, you have to go back and reopen the project. So what I do is I open a new tab. Up here we have the My Projects tab. I'm going to open up a new tab in my browser. I'm going to type in Pavement LCA.com. I'm already logged in, so should come up to my dashboard. There we are. I'm going to click on Reports, Project Reports, and I have a Reports page open, but I'm also got My Projects page open on the previous tab. So I click back on the first tab. And just to remind ourselves, we've got the tutorial HMA project that we've been working on. It is asphalt roadway. We have the roadways defined. We have basic materials entered. We've played with the construction equipment and material transportation. We've also entered operate energy consumption, and in the roadway, and I opened up the HMA roadway. And if you recall, we've defined our roadway, our rehab schedule, and our PVI segments. So the project is as we've been making up so far, and now I want to produce some reports. So I'm going to go back to the second tab that I've opened, Project Reports, and you'll see at the top here, select a project. I'm going to select Tutorial HMA, and we have three buttons: Submit Bill of Materials Request, Submit Report Request, Submit All Reports Request. The other thing we can do is choose which summary measures we want to show up in our reports. We can turn on or off any of these measures if we want. I'm going to leave them on for now. And if you go to the Absolute Value tab to the right, you can choose which reports you want to appear or not appear. So we have 5 absolute value reports: energy consumption, air emissions, water emissions, land emissions, and resource use. And if you don't want any of these, you turn them off. If you do want them, you turn them on. I'm going to leave them all on for now, as well as the summary measures. And the first thing I'm going to do is submit a bill of materials request. I click on Bill of Materials. A new tab has opened up here at the top. I now have 3 Pavement LCA tabs open, and the bill of material report shows up, and it's pretty basic. It's a listing of the materials, the quantity, and their masses. And if you scroll down, there is a pie chart of the materials contribution by mass to the total mass. There's an Export to Excel button at the top. All reports are exportable to Excel, so I'm going to click on Export to Excel. And in Chrome, which I happen to be using, it shows up on a button down here on the left. I click on that to open it, and it should open in Excel for me. There we have it. Here's the Excel sheet with the bill of materials as shown on the screen before, and here's the pie chart. Excel representation of that pie chart as well. So I'm going to go back to Pavement LCA. And we have our bill of materials open here. I'm going to go back to the Reports tab in the middle here. And same project, I'm going to submit a report request. And this should give us our summary measures table. You'll see here another tab is open with the summary measures table in it. As soon as that loads, here we come. And there, it shows our summary measures down here on the left, their units, and then the information is divided into life cycle stages. The manufacturing stage, and it's divided into material effects and transportation effects, the total. The construction phase, also divided into equipment, that's on-site equipment use and transportation of equipment to the construction site. The maintenance and rehab stage, which includes the material totals and the equipment totals for any rehab steps that we've defined, and the transportation effects and the total. We keep scrolling to the right. We have the embodied totals, which is the totals of each of the previous three columns. That's what we call the embodied totals. It's what goes into the actual road itself. We also have the use phase, which is our roadway operating energy, and we input some numbers for diesel and electricity, and this is our annual effects of those burning those fuels. So the global warming potential of those fuels and on an annual basis here, and on the total lifespan of the project, which is just annual times the number of years the project lasts. And finally, we have the use phase PVI section, which is divided into two sections: the PVI effects due to the IRI index, that's the roughness of the road, and the PVI effects due to the deflection, and then the total of those two. So all the reports are in the similar format, divided into columns this way. And again, I can, pardon me, we also have a graph down here at the bottom. And you'll see here, we've got a graph. This is each grouping of stacks here is one of the summary measures. We're starting with global warming potential on the left and so forth down the road to fossil fuel consumption. There's a key down here where it says manufacturing material is in green. So looking at the first stack here, the green column, which as you hover over it, the number shows up, and it's the global warming potential of the manufacturing material column up here. So this number, pardon me, I'm going to scroll back down here. We've got a number of, pardon me, 145,000 kilograms of CO2. So we're going up here, and that should correspond to this number, which is 1.43 times 10 to the 5, which is scientific notation, but that's 145,000. So those are those graphs come from. Again, we have a blue square down here, which is the manufacturing transportation, which is that little bit up there. It shows you the relative effects of transportation over the manufacturing effects, and so on and so forth. We've got construction equipment, construction transportation in one stack. We've got maintenance of material equipment and maintenance transportation in one stack. We've got our annual roadway operating energy as a stack, and we've got the use phase PVI IRI and the use phase PVI deflection numbers in two stacks that add up onto each other. And again, as you hover over, you can see the actual numbers for that, and the same for the other measures. If I scroll back up here, I can export to Excel again. And I have it down here on Chrome. It says opening. I can show you in Excel that that's the way it comes up. Here's the table again that we talked about with all these life cycle stages. And down below that, we have our stack charts and cluster charts that come from the same table. And if I go back here to the tool, Pavement LCA, I'm going back to my reports project, reports page tab, and I'm going to submit an all reports request. And what this does is it includes the bill of materials, the summary measures table, as well as the absolute value tables, all in one grouping, let's say, and when we export them to Excel, they'll all be in one worksheet. So there's our bill of materials as before, with the same graph. The summary measures, again, the same graph. And then our 5 absolute value tables. Energy consumption with energy type over here on the left, and a similar graph down here. Air emissions, with the air emissions here on the left, same life cycle stages on the right. Land emissions, water emissions, and resource uses, all with the same graph down there. And if I hit export to Excel again, it'll take a few seconds, especially with this many tables, to copy. And it says here I have it ready. Click on Excel. And here it is in Excel. I have a bill of materials table in one tab at the bottom here. I have my summary measures table and graph. Here, this tab, energy consumption, again, the table and the graphs, resource use, land emissions, air emissions, and water emissions. Air emissions is a long table. There's, let's see how many, there's about 100 or so air emissions. We found that air emissions and water emissions, there's just too many of them to graph effectively. It just becomes so crowded you can't read it. So we don't bother including those graphs in the export, but land emissions, resource use, and energy consumption tables do have the graphs included. Now I'm going back to the tool. I'm going to close these last three tabs, which are the reports that we just created. I still have my LCA reports page open. I'm going to switch that to comparison reports over here on the left panel, and we'll click it there. Now, I'm going to go back to my projects. Where we were before, we have our two tutorial files there. I'm going to try comparing a couple of sample projects. And this will be described further in the sample projects video. But on the left-hand side under projects, I hit sample projects, and I want to copy two of these files into my project. And I'm going to use the first one, Ontario Municipal Collector HMA 250 AADT Road. I'm going to hit the copy button, and that will show up in my projects. And then I want another one, which is further down the list here. And I'm going to go with the Ontario Municipal Minor Arterial HMA 1500 AADT Road. I'm going to copy that to my projects. If I scroll back up and go back to my projects, you'll see I have these two new sample projects copied into my projects, and I'm just going to quickly rename them. And I'll show you why in a minute. HMA 1500 project. And HMA 250. Project. So I have these two files in my projects, and I want to do comparison reports between them. So I'm going back to that tab, that project tab that we opened before, and you'll see they're not showing up here because when I opened this page, they weren't in my projects. So I'm just going to hit the refresh button, which is F5 for most browsers. That will refresh this page, and you'll see those projects are now available. So I want to compare these two projects by selecting them. And you'll see I have Submit Bill of Materials Request button up here. So we'll click on that. A new tab has opened. And there we have it, a comparison report of the bill of materials of these two projects. So we've got the project name over here, HMA 1500 and HMA 250. They both have emulsified asphalt primer coat in those totals there. They happen to be the same for that. As we go down through the materials, the tack coat is a little bit different in the 1500 here on the third row than on the fourth row. Granular A is the same. The granular B is different. You'll see these two numbers have changed here. And the amount of super pave is slightly different, and super pave 12.5. In fact, correction, we have in the HMA 250 road, we have HMA super pave 12.5, and in the HMA 1500, we have HMA super pave 12.5 FC1. So there's different quantities of that material, but there are also different pavements here. They both have super pave 19, but in different quantities here, and they both have asphalt sealant in the same quantity here. So that's a comparison of bill of materials, and again, you can export to Excel. It'll take a few seconds, and it shows up here as a button in my browser. And I click on that, and there you have it, bill of materials table with the comparison of all those totals. So if I go back to the tool, this is my bill of materials page, but I'm going to go back to my reports page, reports tab. And now I want to submit a report request. Before they do that, I'm going to go through report configuration and then click over here. And again, we are allowing the summary measures to be chosen here. We can choose whether we want absolute value or project baseline as our graphing type or graph type. I'm going to choose absolute value, and I'll come back to baseline in a few minutes. And the reported group type options, group totals, and individual by life cycle stage. I'm going to leave it at group totals for now, and I'll come back and show you the difference in a minute. So we submit report request between those two pages. Again, a new tab is opened at the top. So here we have the two projects, HMA 1500 and 250, versus each other for the global warming potential. Here are our two values here. We have the same for each summary measure as we go down the table. And if you scroll down, you'll see the graphs down here. This is the reason I changed the file names to shorter names, because those long names start to make this legend at the bottom very complicated, or hard to read anyway. But you'll see here we've got a manufacturing total in orange for the HMA 1500 road. We've got a manufacturing total for in green for the 250 road for global warming, or for any of the summary measures over here. We can hover again over the bars, and it shows us the result, the numbers for that bar. And then the next bars are the construction total of both files and the maintenance total. In the legend down here, we have legends for PVI totals and the roadway operating energy, but these are from the sample files, and those files don't include operating energy or PVI, so there are no results showing up here. The stacked bars would be to the right of here, down here for each measure as well, and you'll see up here in the table that we have zero values there, so they don't show up on the graph. Again, I can export to Excel. And here we have it in Excel. Here's our comparison of each summary measure for each project name over here, the table, and our graphs down below. I'm going to go back to the tool. I'm going back to my projects tab, and I'm going to change the report configuration to project baseline. And we need to select a baseline project. So project baseline means is you take one project basically as being 100%, and you compare the totals of the other project to it. So I'm going to assume that my baseline project is HMA 1500, and I'm going to submit my report request. A new tab is opened up again. And here's the comparison. See our HMA 1500, the totals are all set at 100%. And this means that HMA 250's results for global warming potential are 85.5% those of the HMA 1500. If we had chosen HMA 250 as the baseline project, these would have been reversed. HMA would have been 250 would have been 100, and HMA 1500 would have been something like 110 or 112%, something like that. You scroll down here, you have the graph again, and you'll see here all the orange bars are the HMA 1500 results. They're at 100%, and all the green bars are the HMA 250 results in comparison to the HMA 1500. If I go back again to my projects page, and I'm going to leave it at project baseline, I'm going to change from group totals to individual life cycle stage. So group totals, as we've been using, and I'll go back again to the last graph, means that each bar here is the total of the manufacturing group. The next bar is the total of the construction group, and the next bar is the total of the maintenance group. That means material effects, equipment effects, and transportation have all been added up. But going back to project reports, if we want to go by individual life cycle stage, we can click on there and hit submit request. And here we have our familiar table. Each report is there, each summary measure is there. Again, we're doing project baseline, so it's on a percentage basis. But I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll just see here we have a number, we have more numbers of bars here. So instead of down here having HMA manufacturing total, we've divided that into 2 bars. We've got the manufacturing material, which is the first orange one there on the left, and then the HMA 250 manufacturing material is the first green one. And the second orange one is for HMA 1500 is manufacturing transportation. And the next green one is for the HMA 250 manufacturing transportation, and so on and so forth. We've got construction equipment, construction transportation, we've got maintenance and maintenance material and equipment, and we've got maintenance transportation. So it's more granular, there's more information there, but it's also more crowded and perhaps more difficult to read. But as with anything else, any other report, we can export to Excel. And I'm going to look at it in Excel down here. There we have it. There's our table there. And then there are our tables with more clusters of more bars and more life cycle stages adding up here, which may or may not be a good thing depending on your needs, but it's there for you if you want it. And that's it for reports, tables, and graphs. There are a few options you can get used to, but remember, you can always export to Excel and manipulate the numbers any way you want in Excel. This concludes the viewing results, tables, and graphs tutorial.